A new week, Monday. If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. Today's word is moving, and you have no idea how relevant that is to all of us here on the stage. And you're going to be able to participate and learn more about not the word, but the context and application also. I am so honored to have Gretchen Skelka, probably the oldest person on LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower, as far as tenure, not age. And I got that by a couple days. And chat's open, so we welcome your comments. We actually depend on them to be as focused and relevant to your needs. So you get some really valuable takeaways. I know we laugh a lot, but I know there's a lot of people being challenged and hurting out there. And we're really looking to help everyone out, but especially you. So you've got a voice. The ticker says comment and be honored, and share and think at this point what moving has meant to you or may mean to you in the future. So before the comments come in fast and furious, and they already are, let's turn it over to Gretchen, and she can share a little bit about where she's been in 2 weeks and what moving means to her, which is probably number one right now.
It is number one. I do want to say good morning to you and to Myra and Omar and Janice for being here with us so early. But yeah, no, moving is definitely very much top of mind lately. We are in the process of doing exactly that. So my husband and I are going to be moving. We listed our house a little over a week ago. It listed. We've had a lot of, I think 5 showings and an open house. We've had 2 offers. And so it's happening, but there's a lot of unknowns. Where exactly are we going? We're not sure. It's going to be somewhere maybe West Georgia or Alabama. We don't know. And I've learned a lot. It's interesting. This will be our 5th house that we've bought since we've been married. So you'd think I would know what I'm doing. The word moving to me, I love that you chose it because it's not only what I'm in the middle of right now, but it's like that word that sort of implies forward progress and change at the same time. And forward progress is something that everybody's like, yay, I want forward progress. I'm comfortable with that. I want to go for it. And change, everybody's like, no, I don't want change. So those 2 things at the same time wrapped inside one word is really interesting to think about, because it's everything you want and everything you're afraid of at the same time. If it's moving, change is happening. If it's moving, there's some kind of progress being made. Otherwise, you'd be stagnant, right? So the word itself is very, very, it's just, yes, very much, very topical right now for me. So much that I've learned, relearned in the process. And like I was telling you before we came on live, the last time we moved, it sounds weird to say, but the good part about having your house blow up is that you don't have to do any of the move part. It's kind of already done. And so all we had to do was settle the lawsuit and find a place to live. And so that was cool, I guess. But now it's like everything, you have to do everything. And on the other side of that, it's a very emotional reason why we are moving. And so there's also the time factor. Like, I don't want it to take too long. And so I need to be patient, right? So the word moving, all the connotations of when something's moving, you also want to be sure that you maintain the control over it so it doesn't get off track or go out of control, and you can't manage that. So the word it's actually a really complex word. It's multifaceted. It means something different to everybody, whether you're moving to a new job or you're moving within a job or you're moving out of a job. If we talk about from the career level, relationships, like everything, there's movement everywhere. And for me, I try to focus on the fact that if there's movement, there's possibility.
That's so great. And I think you do such a wonderful job of encapsulating information like that that's so easy to appreciate and relate to. And let's say hello to everybody real quick, because this is what it's all about. The audience. Myra, thank you for coming. We've got Omar here. Omar's just very innovative and really working on all kinds of different interesting projects. Janice is here. Janice did just a wonderful job with her first time co-hosting the other day. So we're so happy to have Janice and look forward to having Janice back. Erharan is here. Thank you very much. Ashif is here. Ashif comes pretty much every day. Just a great guy. Somebody you really need to know and meet. Danny, right there in Ashif's category. Another wonderful, really upbeat person who brings a lot of positivity. Dean's here. Can't talk enough about Dean. Wonderful guy. If you don't know him, you should. And get to know him. Get to know everybody a little bit better. Good morning.
Yeah.
So nice to have you, Dr. Joanne. She's been doing great on her speaking here. Myra comes back with "You're very welcome. Happy to be here." Well, with that, and taking Gretchen's point to heart, moving to me is exciting. Moving is like going from where you have already been or are and to somewhere new. And that's why vacations and trips are so cool. You're moving to Las Vegas for 4 days, or you're going to Palm Springs for a week. And for a week, you're seeing sights, you're in different dwellings, different restaurants. And then if you take it to success, how do you move into success? How do you move up in success?
Yeah.
And the key is you have to leave where you are to go where you want to go. And most people are sitting in the middle of the fence on both sides, and you can't be on both sides. And I think the key is once you make a decision to move, right?
Yeah.
Because, once it's over, now you're on to where you're going. Another reason why people don't move forward as fast is because they're afraid, and they get stuck. And sometimes they glue themselves to their environment and don't want to move because they're comfortably uncomfortable, but they've learned to live with it, right?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
what I see, and the reason the show and the audience is all responsible for the success, is no one's satisfied, but everybody's happy. And everybody's looking to leadership to, okay, we're ready to fight. Let's get into something. Let's fight for something worthwhile. Let's fight for ourselves not just do for ourselves, but fight for ourselves. So the next level of the show is going to be bringing more training, because what I see, this is great for mindset and attitude and perspective, and that helps. But without skill set and knowledge set, you're just a well-intended, excited person who's going to be stumbling and doesn't even know it. And then the third step is activity. You get excited, you get smart, and you get to work. And being able to put, again, a collaborative overlay on it and bring everybody into it, because this should not only teach you, this vehicle should work for you, right? And so it's just, looking ahead. I know Gretchen is such a scout for what's on the other side, always looking to see how to improve. She is so efficient, in what she does. So, that's another thing about moving. It's who you're moving with, right?
Yes.
Just like a racer, right? You want to move with someone faster than you. You want to move with someone challenging you. You want to move with someone that says, hey, come on, let's go. Instead of like, I'm sitting here, I don't know, So go ahead, Gretchen.
I was going to say, it's one of those things where, you can have all the information in the world. And there are a lot of people who we're skilling up, we're skilling out, we're doing all this stuff, we're collecting certifications, and that is great. But you can have all the information in the world, but without the right implementation, it goes nowhere. And again, everybody is talking about Chat GPT and how you can use Chat GPT for all kinds of things, and you can. And somebody that I know, and I have so much respect for, he is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He used Chat GPT to create like the perfect diet plan, right? Like meal plan and all that. And I thought about that, and I thought, it's true. I can go out and the information is out there. I can find the absolute perfect meal, food, nutrient combinations for my age, my size, my everything. And I can do that. I can have all that information. But without the right implementation, it's not a diet. It doesn't go anywhere. I'm not going to do anything with it. And so what does that implementation look like? And you're right. It's finding someone who is going to be able to be just a half step ahead of you and say, come on, we're going to do this together. Right. And do that. And somebody who's got the, who's able to see, not just the road ahead, but off to the side, because that's usually where things come in and can derail you and knock you off course and rock your boat. And so those things are all really important. Information is absolutely fundamental to everything, but without the right implementation, and the right implementation for me may not be right for you or for Paul or for Dean or for Myra or anybody else, but their right implementation is there as well. And so that is absolutely critical to getting and finding and being in line with what it is that you do want and what it is that's going to work for you. And so I think that's really critical. Yeah.
Well, here's what comes to mind, and you hit it right on the nail, is it's who you're moving with.
Yes.
And what and also being aware of where everybody else is moving independently, because this show has gotten me an opportunity to get to know Gretchen over, 8-9 months of every Monday and every other Monday for so long. And when we started, I think this was your first LinkedIn Live, and we didn't know where we were moving to. We just knew we had to move away from where we were to get to where we needed to be. Yep. But over all this time, you start to think, hey, I know who this person is. I know how they do what they do, and I know where they're moving. Why not see how we can get together and move together and allow someone to apply their core competency? The reason why people don't do more is they're great at one thing, but they get confused with the business side, the marketing side, the sales side. And that shouldn't be any part of their side. But because you're starting fresh in yourself, you're everything to everybody. And so what I see is when you can come together in a group like this with knowledge share, but then take it to Gretchen's point, because Gretchen's a expert business management, group leader, team builder going into this. This is a skill set on top of a real set. And I think with that going for you, Gretchen, and a lot of people here should have a much bigger stage immediately, right? If you try to build it yourself, one person, one conversation at a time, it takes forever and it's not scalable and you got to do it forever. If you can just say, okay, now everybody knows who I am, I want to share how we can do better together. Because the whole focus, and I think that's another foundation here, it was all about the audience and still is. Always audience first. So what's in it for them? The next step is what's in it for them that we can learn together and teach together. And then that takes you to doing together. Let me just cover the names because this is so avalanche at times. Dennis says moving is improving. Agree. We come back with Dennis. Okay, we just covered that. Paul says Paul's always the most gracious greeter, meter. Anytime he comes on a show, he always says grateful to be here. And hello to the guest host. Thank you, Paul. Real gentleman. Dean's here, morning from YouTube. I'm glad you could see it there. Dr. Joanne says, when we stand still, nothing happens. It's no fun. Even when you're good at something, it gets boring if you don't change it. Moving gives me all the emotions, especially my latest adventure being far away physically from my family and friends. Yet at the same time, I haven't felt more alive and truly living each day as if it is my last. So that is so great, Paul. Thank you for sharing that. Janice comes back with, I appreciate the moving topic of my family is involved in a move right now. You're moving one way or another, whether you know it or not. Agree, moving is exciting. You do have to leave to be improving. Thanks for training and reminding us. Rashida says, good evening. Thank you from Antwerp. Here's a new name. I haven't seen Karen. Welcome.
I know Karen. Actually, I know a couple people in the, so I had lunch with Karen yesterday.
What'd you have for lunch?
We both had salad, and
Okay.
Karen is somebody that I worked with for a long time. Karen is somebody who taught me one of the best lessons I needed to learn about myself, and she did it in a very loving way, and I'll always be grateful to her. I also see Kathleen Moore in your audience, who she is a professional trainer. She's training director. She is. I've learned so much from her as well. She actually changed the way I thought about what corporate training could be. But yeah, Karen. So yeah, I know them very, very well. And Leslie, who I know you know, is actually going to be on the flight attendant tomorrow. So all of this to say that you're right. Who you travel with, who you move with, matters. And it's interesting because I know, like I've worked with both Kathleen and Karen. I don't work with them now. We all are in different places, but I will always know them. And I love that because that doesn't always happen for people in the world of work. And the ones you take with you, there's a reason for that. And so I love that they're here.
Well, that's such a great point because you can continue to move together,
And
especially.
Rima, I see Rima.
Okay, where's Rima?
She
What?
just popped in from YouTube. I know Rima. So Rima also I worked with. She's also a trainer. She's an instructional designer. So yeah, that's so cool that they're all here.
Well, that's so cool that this allows people to be all here
Yeah.
so easily. But not only that, is to be here with everyone else who's here. If we're
Yes.
just us on the stage and we were just presenting to everybody, but everybody in a way is on a stage here and
Yeah.
has the ability to be heard, seen, and reach out and connect with these people that they have self-qualified themselves
Yeah.
because of their relationships with us. We vouch for them. Go ahead.
I was going to say something else too, because, pointing out that both Rima and Kathleen are in the professional training space. And Karen is somebody, she's a creative, she's a leader, she's a natural leader. But, we talk about moving and learning and the people that you learn from and how that's training. When you're learning anything, even if it's about yourself, there's an amount of training that goes into that kind of emotional movement, mental movement, which is something that Janice just mentioned in her comment. Sometimes the most powerful move is movement of thought, and again, I go back to moving and movement. There's that implied forward progress. I know there was a comment about not all movement is progress, and I respect that. But the implication is movement is forward progress. It can be backward or sideways, but hi, Kim, and she's the podcast I did Saturday. I love her. But also change. So change is also implied in movement and moving, and that change of thought. And that's very important because I think it was like a Churchill thing. Like if you never change, if you don't change your way of thinking, you never change anything or whatever. I'm not getting the quote wrong, but he said something to that effect of, people who never change their minds never change anything. You have to be able to change, be open to modifying, rethinking, recalibrating your own way of thinking about things, including yourself. There's real growth opportunity that happens there. And I think for what you're building, bringing in more people to share best practices and things that they do, that can help other people. One of the things that I love to be able to do is just kind of listen to somebody's story and then help them figure out where in there is like the nugget, the opportunity that they may not be seeing, because most people we're looking to the end of the road or the ultimate payoff and all the little things along the way that they're there for a reason. And sometimes there are necessary detours. That ultimate end goal can shift and change. And that's a beautiful thing when you allow yourself to be open to that, because you never know. I mean, I'm literally somebody who is, no joke, never really consciously made any of the major decisions in my life. When I was, I picked my original major in college, and then I got attacked by a dog. And my original, I was going to be a veterinarian, and I was going to show dogs and be a veterinarian. And that changed that. And so I was like, well, I like to write short stories. So I went into journalism. Didn't intend to, but I did that. And then I got wind of this fun opportunity to start working online in 1996. That's how long I've been working online. And when almost nobody was online. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun for a while. And even when Steve proposed, like, you know, he was like, so you going to marry me or what? You going to marry me or what? And I was like, yeah, we'll give it a shot, see if it works out for a while. 28 years later, we're still here, you know. But again, moving to Florida, I did not consciously decide to move to Florida. I had an editor in Montgomery, Alabama, who said, you need to go to a bigger paper. And he was like, I think the Post is hiring, the Palm Beach Post. And I was like, nah, okay. I was 24. I was like, okay, so I flew down, they had a test, and I got the job. And so I moved to Florida. I thought, I'll be here for a year and I'll go back, you know, and I met Steve and I've stayed, but I've never it's not just been like this conscious thing, you know, when I even companies, you know, deciding to try opportunities at companies, you know, and see where they go. And you just never know. And I think that's also something when you allow yourself that's to step, like you said, Dawn, take that first step. Even if it's into the unknown, which I absolutely did when I left my corporate career of a couple of decades. I didn't have anything lined up. I did not know what I was going to do. I literally told a friend of mine in HR, I said, I feel like I'm stepping off a cliff, but I'm not, but I know this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, it was everything in my gut was saying, this is time. You have to go. You have to leave this place and do whatever. And I figured it out. But again, sometimes stepping into the unknown, as scary and sort of, you know, unsure footing as you may have, sometimes that's the thing you want to allow yourself to try. And I'm not advocating taking unnecessary risk. Certainly not. There were other things I had in place that allowed me to be able to do that. But certainly, you know, moving to Florida with, I don't know, I guess I'll come down there, you know, away from all of my family, you know, and now 29 years later, you know, I moved here in 94, February of 94. I got married in 95. So yeah, we're moving back, and you just never know where, you know, and it's cliche, but the winds of fate are going to take you, but you need to be open to them. And that comes with what Janice was saying about, you know, being open to changing, you know, that movement of changing your thought, changing the way you perceive or interpret or just think about things, because there is so much green pasture there. Like, you can't even imagine when you start thinking about things in a different way. You're like, holy moly, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. You know, it's really cool.
That's beautiful and so compelling. And what I receive from that also is the more you move, the easier moving becomes, right? It's the change that is really hard to accept. And you always know where you are and where you've been, but you don't know where you're going. And you got to say goodbye to everything, to say hello to everything new, which puts all the pressure on the front end not to do it or to take your time doing it. And like Gretchen says, there's a voice inside yourself that just says, now's the time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you did enough training, you know, you got, you know, that's what I would say to myself. If I'm going to shows and just getting smarter and just feeling better, but I haven't applied it, where's the wall I need to climb to get over it? And what I know so well, even about mindset discussions like we're having, is that a lot of people need someone to get them over where they're at. Yeah. And it could just be company, it could be conversation, but it could be, you know, belief in someone's ability to move forward and being able to share that, to say, hey, you're not giving yourself enough credit. You've got so much talent. If people knew you the way I know you, you would be so successful. Let me help you get seen. And I think to the people, it's so easy to forget about them. But to your point, Leslie Flowers is a good example. Yeah, you know, I met Leslie. She's been on the show pretty much weekly, or at least bi-weekly. And everywhere I look, Leslie is a guest, like you say, on your Plate Attendant show, on the Hounds. And you know what it is? It shows you there's a demand and a need for more learning from more people in different ways. Yep. And we're still a very small population. If you added up the Hounds and Trevor and everybody else that's creating things, it's in the hundreds if you're lucky. We're dealing 900 million people here, 200 million that see what they're looking at. Only 18 million who create anything, only
Yeah.
36,000 newsletters, and probably if I said 1,000 LinkedIn lives, I only know about 30 or 40. But let's say 1,000 out of 900 million. How much possibilities do you have by rising above, being distinguished, being
Yeah.
seen over the crowd because of you as you? You know, you don't have to
Yeah.
sell here. You just got to be here, and
Yeah.
your being will show the best of you. And I think
Yeah.
everybody needs to step out of the shadows, move into the spotlight that's provided for you. And if you can't get there, reach out to somebody and say, here's what's stopping me. You know, I'd love to do it, but I'm afraid of heights. What is there an accommodation, or I need, whatever. But
Yeah.
let's get to the people, because we won't, and I'll feel so bad for the rest of the day.
There's some good comments too. Yeah.
Well, here's Christine. She's got I just did an whatever exercise to develop.
Ikigai. Yeah.
Okay, are you familiar with that? Gretchen is. It's a Japanese method. There's more questions in this, but here are some: what you love, what you're good at, what you get paid for, what the world needs, and a combination of it. But here's the thing: when you move to Gretchen's primary point, you know, there was a Chinese proverb: a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Mm-hmm.
And everything can be done one step, and then you can look ahead at the next step. You don't have to go 1, 2, 3. You just go 1. When you're comfortable, you go 2. Gretchen?
It's like, framework thinking, right? Where you have to be able to, we all need goals, and we all need, aspirations and those things. But traveling alongside those also has to be, alongside that movement, right? Also has to be that awareness that there are other things that can happen, so that you recalibrate along the way, because your destination, your goal can change, and that's okay. So many people, go straight ahead, tunnel vision, because that's the thing. Maybe that they were told they should go for, or that they were expected to go for, or that they really want to go for, but they don't allow themselves to entertain the thought of the possibility that there might be something else that can really also do it for them, like make them happy. And so we tune those things out instead of saying, well, maybe, right? Investigating that. Not everything's going to work out, but some things do that you never expect. But those kind of things are important when you talk about that, framework thinking, where you've got to introduce the sort of, rinse repeat method, right? And understand, like, okay, is what I'm doing working? Am I happy going forward for this? And if not, your goal is still here, right? Your goal is still out in the distance somewhere, but your goal again can change. And that way, if what you're doing, your method isn't working for you, you're probably not going to reach that goal. So now we tweak, and we change, and we think about things in a different way, and we try new things, and we jettison the ones that don't work, and we keep the ones that do, and we keep going. But those little course corrections are incredibly important. That's actually what I do with people, is mental course corrections, where when things happen, we start to think about them in a different way, and realize that even in the worst of things, and you don't ever think about them when they're happening, but even in the worst of things, there are gifts and opportunities that you can take from that, and they may not be obvious right away. They may not even present themselves right away, but there's a layering of the effect of them. And then at some point, there's the benefit, and there is benefit there. When Sportsline, which was the startup I started working for in 96, loved Sportsline. I mean, some of the best people I know, I met there. And I was there for 8 years, and we got bought. And when we got bought, they laid a bunch of people off. And so I got laid off. And so I was very upset. Obviously, I loved that job. I loved it. But I never would have found Tropical Shipping had I not been laid off from Sportsline. It never would have crossed my radar. And if it did, I would have discounted it, because I was super happy where I was. Tropical Shipping changed the way I thought about what it is to work, how we can, work should be XYZ, but how we can be at work and for each other. It absolutely changed the way I think about it. And some of the longest relationships that I will ever have come from people that I know from Tropical Shipping. And Tropical Shipping had there was a change there that led me to TBC, where I met Kathleen and Rima and Karen and Cheryl. I saw Cheryl, Carol in the audience too. And again, all these things happen. None of that was planned. Who plans to get laid off? But when you're open to some possibilities, you'll begin to see them. When people say, I changed my thinking and it changed my life, it's not just that there was this aha moment and everything sort of like blossomed in front of you, but you noticed that the blossom was there, as opposed to being so closed off from the possibility of it because this bad thing happened, so everything must be bad. Instead, now you notice it. It's the same as the red car principle. If you really want a red car and, you're thinking about a red car and, you finally get that red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere because the red car is on your mind. And that's the same thing, is when you open your mind up to it, you begin to see the thing that you're open to it. And it's there all the time, but sometimes you don't see it. Framework thinking is really important, as long as we understand that framework can and should always be changing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to so much these days, and everything's so dynamic, and everything is moving, and you're never really, by the time you move somewhere, you're already moving again, right? In some way, shape, or form. But here's what I will say for the people who see, I only worked one time when I was 15 in my life, and I never had another job. And because of that, I never worried about job security. I worried about business security, but I never worried, would I get fired or would I have to do something I never wanted to do because I had to, because somebody else wanted it done that way.
Yep.
So moving is freedom. Where you go, is it giving you more freedom? And not just physical freedom, but like to Gretchen's point, she's moving to get closer to family.
Yeah.
Right. And that's freeing. Right. And that takes priority. But what was a priority 30 years ago and was satisfied cannot be the same priority today. No different.
Right.
And you wouldn't be wearing the same clothes today as you had 30, because you would have found better clothes that fit you, better clothes that identified with you. And with this show and with these people, we're dealing with real life and real time right now. This is not an academic discussion around scholars who are just sitting around a table, getting ready to play their next game of chess or something. This is about people who need tools.
Yeah.
Everybody needs more tools. And I'll say one thing about change, and I've had enough opportunities through my lifetime to be at the front end of change. I was there bidding on URLs when they became available the first day. I was one of the first biggest players on eBay and Amazon and Walmart.com. And I was the smallest player. And I was a player with the least amount of resources. And when you don't have money, you only have two things: yourself and everybody with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you can build reasons for being, which is reasons for hope for the future, a better future, because that's what we're all moving to, or should be moving to, is how do I make things better for me and the people around me? And the only way to do it is to leverage something that's already got a tailwind, and you ride it. You don't create the plane, you find where it's going, and you buy a ticket to it. Right? And then eventually you can become the pilot and the owner of it. But you can't do that if you don't first buy that ticket. And the thing is, it's the journey, it's the joy of the ride. Have you ever been in a place that you say, I wish I had 2 more days here? Go ahead, Gretchen.
It's the exact same as when I think about Sportsline. If I had known that that's how my journey there would end, if I had known that it would end with, a decision from somebody that I didn't know to say, you're no longer necessary to a bunch of us, right? Would I have done it? Yeah. I mean, it's the same reason you do anything. Nobody knows what the ultimate outcome is going to be of anything except the ultimate outcome, right? But nobody knows. There's no guarantee in anything, but you still try and you do, and you put what you have into it because there's something in there that speaks to you that you want. I was talking to Kim on Saturday about, trusting your gut instinct, which is the one thing a lot of people don't do. It's that inner voice, that inner knowing that we all have, but a lot of us don't recognize it. And I will count myself in this group because I did this for a long time, where it's the first thing we say no to is ourselves and our own intuition. We'll say yes to everybody else's opinion and idea and thought and all that. They probably know, but our own inner knowing, our own inner voice is the first thing most people are like, nope, that can't be right. Nope. Why? And it's always there, and it's got your best interest at heart. And there's usually a very good reason to listen to it. And I didn't do it for a long time, and now I do. I try to really practice following that instinct and my intuition with that, and being more present with it. And I think that's really important because that also is, again, I think Janice was the one who said, changing your thoughts is, when you can begin to do that and honor what you already know and help bring that out in yourself and validate that you do know that's also a real confidence builder. And when you start to listen to yourself, you will notice that other people start to listen to you more too. And their input is more, I would say, collaborative with you instead of this is just, you should do what I say. This is what I think you should do, that kind of thing. I think that's really important for a lot of people, is that inner knowingness, and having that no longer be the first voice you tell to be quiet is your own inner voice. Don't do that. There's a lot of goodness there.
Obviously, Gretchen's put a lot of thought and had a lot of experience to support what she's sharing, because I think people don't always appreciate when people share what they had to go through to learn it, to appreciate it, and then to take the big step in moving forward is sharing it, is being vulnerable, and why. And sometimes it hurts, but you know how much it helps. And if it can help somebody so much and maybe give you a tinge of pain, so you take it. But you know what happens? Over time, if you expose a cut, the oxygen heals it faster. Mm-hmm. And the more you expose it, the faster it heals, and you become numb to it. Yeah. So and I think that's what life is. There's going to be thorns. There's no way of escaping them because you didn't create them. They came to you. You were happy where you were, and then all of a sudden, boom, bang, and you wish you had yesterday's troubles today. Go ahead.
And that's the thing, is there are always going to be challenges in life. That's just a natural byproduct of living in the world that we live in, because we're not alone in this, environment. There are a million other beings and living things around us that are going to impact us in such a way. So there will always be challenges, but it's how you perceive them, how you deal with them, how you think your way through them. And again, you talked about, fear at the beginning. A lot of people are fearful to listen to themselves, to take that first step and all that. And most fear, we know where it comes from, and a lot of it can be dealt with, but it's such a big stress producer. And the important part about that is that when you're acting from a place of fear, you are creating stress. And when you create stress, you actually do change the way your brain processes information. It just can't process it very well. A stressed brain isn't a problem-solving brain. And so it's another reason why it's really important to develop those techniques and skills within yourself to be able to, I always say, diffuse your inner bomb. Take that moment if you need to, dial it back, take a second, take a beat, whatever you want to say. But when that thing happens, instead of defaulting to the autopilot behavior that we usually do, stop and just think about, let me look at this from all the sides. What is something in here I'm not expecting to find? What is this there to teach me? Years ago, I worked with a gentleman at TBC, and I'll give him a shout out. I don't know if he's watching, but Stephen Higgins, one of the wisest people I've ever met. And he was challenged by somebody. And it was the first time I had heard anybody say this. I think it was like 2011, 2012. And he was really challenged by another person in the company. And he said, She's my teacher. I have to figure out what she's here to teach me. I was like that mind blown emoji. I was like, oh, sensei, tell me more. How are you so wise that that's the way you want to look at this? Because most people would be like, like really upset about it. He was like, no, she's here to teach me something. I need to figure out. She's my teacher. And I have never forgotten that. And when I'm really challenged by something, it's one of those things that I think about. And again, I didn't come up with that. I learned that from him, and he learned it somewhere else. And that's, again, the power of who you move with, who is helping you with your change, who you're getting your information from, and never discount yourself in there. But that's such really important information to think about, how to start to think about the things that are happening in a little different way. Again, gifts and opportunities are in everything, even the stuff that's like you would never think it's in there. And again, having been through, like just a lot, again, we all know the 2014 to 2018, craptastic time. But every single thing in there taught me so much. And by the time, the line fell and the house blew up, there were so many techniques and things that I had learned, but I still had trouble with that one. I still had to think a different way to get through that. And I had to reach out to other people to get that help, and I still do that. And I think that's also really important, is to remember that you're never done, right? You'll never get it all done. It's never all finished. It can always change at any time. And that's cool, because so can you. You're never done.
Well, and you never are, and you never should be, because
Yep.
done means there's nothing more, or there's
Right.
nothing more you can think of, and you've just peaked. And maybe if you're ultimately, when you have to decide when to stop moving too,
Mhm.
right? At a certain point, you got to sit still, you got to enjoy where you are. And I think everybody has to measure their movements. If you have a career and you say, well, in 2 years I should be here, and I'm here, and why am I not there, or why am I still thinking I should be there? So if your expectations start to align with your reality, and yesterday gave you an opportunity for tomorrow instead of a reason to pull you back. The reason why old companies, especially today, don't do well is they have so much legacy. They keep carrying the past forward. They have sacred cows, they've got traditions, they've got things
Yes.
that they always do, and they're very
And they're not moving. They're
That's-
not moving with new thought and new intention. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, everybody's on, going up a down escalator, whether you know it or not, right? And either you're going forward or it's moving you back, and you got to determine how much speed or energy you want to put in to stay in ahead of the curve. And it's like I always say, it's like musical chairs today with less chairs and faster music.
Mhm.
The people who can get one are going to get a good one, but the people who had one are going to have to figure out how to get back to getting one again. And the idea is find someone who already has one and now doesn't have to worry about them getting one. They can help you get one.
Yeah.
And it has to be something that is, in this new program I'm putting together, and I'll never get done until the minute I start it, is the only thing that's required is a burning desire to succeed and an interest in being a good person who wants to help other good people do better, right? And that's so beautiful about this platform. It used to be, well, how many connections, what's your accreditations, what's your path? It's really, hey, are you a really good person who wants to really do better? But here's the door that needs to be open. You need to be open to learning first before moving. You have to, once you learn, you got to be able to move, right? So if one's goal was, I want to move, and I want to move fast, and I want to move forward to get to some level of happiness and success, then you got to open up all those doors before you get started, right? Go ahead, Gretchen.
I will say, though, moving toward happiness and success, I have to caution on that one, because moving toward happiness is, you can have that anywhere. You can have happiness without career highlights and all that kind of, you can. if your happiness is dependent on achieving something, then that happiness will elude you no matter what. So
Hmm.
something to be very, very like that's so important. I can't stress it enough. And success is so subjective. You know, there was a time in my life when I absolutely was like, success is anchored in, right? Title, compensation, like when I've made it. And I had all that stuff. And I didn't think that was success because you still don't have full autonomy over everything, even in those situations. You don't. And so, what is success? And that I had to redefine that for me. So, that autonomy, that being able to, as you said, like you've only had the one job, you've never had to worry about getting fired. It's just, getting your business to succeed. But that's your definition. Having that autonomy is very important. It's different for everybody. I've worked with people who are like at the height of their career and they're like, I don't want this anymore. This is not the ride I thought I was signing up for. But I can't get off because, I'm here and my whole life is revolved around this role, this schedule, this money, and I can't get off. And I'm like, why can't you get off? Did you buy cement shoes and then plant yourself in the ground? You can get off anytime you want. You just don't know you can, or you're not comfortable with taking that first step, right? Understanding that you can and that you're allowed to, and whatever happens is going to happen. And you can come back from that. I promise you can come back from that. There was a period of time again where, when the house, I was again at the height of my professional career, but had to move out. We didn't have a home. I was broke. I mean, paying a lawyer, had to pay a mortgage on a house you can't live in, have to pay first class security every time you have to move, which you have to move a lot, broke. And I was really like, but you could worry. I was really scared. That was a hard time, but you can come back. You think your way through it again, when you're not operating from a panic position and you're not all stressed out. And I've been there too. Again, when my niece died, my mom had just been injured in a really bad accident. And that was the end of 2014. And when, I was so strung out, and it was people in my circle who were like, girl, you need to stop. You got to peel it back. You're too strung out. Again, that's how you can recalibrate and think about those things. But again, you can come back from all of that. You have to be able to calmly process, think about it in a different way, find what works for you, and say, it's okay. All these other things that aren't working for me, there may be expectation and everything that's saddled with societally. You don't have to prescribe to that. You can say, you know what, I get that. Everybody thinks I should, but it doesn't feel right to me. Therefore, I'm going to try this way over here. And if you're happy doing it, great. That's all that matters. You can rebuild anything as long as you are taking in the air and exhale in the air. You can do anything. You can try, you can come back, you can be successful at anything because you always have another chance.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like sometimes to get somewhere, you have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes you get a two-stop on an airplane, right? Where you got to stop in Cincinnati or San Francisco, whatever. And the point is in moving, sometimes you got to put it in neutral for a little bit, slow down. I mean, like if you're taking a road trip, you got to say, hey, eventually need a rest stop or a restaurant. Or we just got to take a break, right?
Yeah.
When you're moving real fast, just like a runner, you got to take a break. You got to get yourself back into the game when you're ready.
Yeah.
It's a continuum, not an outcome. It never ends until you end. And in one way, without taking it, everybody's in the waiting room of death. We all know one day is going to be our day. So what are you doing in that waiting room of life, right? I wake up every day. The first thing I think of is I just got another ticket on the amusement park of what characters am I going to run into today? What situations? Because they were here before me. They'll be here after me. They didn't have anything to do with me. Yeah. I'm just lucky to have an opportunity. And with that said, your ability to reach personal acceptance, validation, being so proud of yourself, being in love with yourself, is based on how you go forward, how you move through every day. If every minute is like you had some control over it. When I ate, what I wore, where I went, who I talked to, how I talked to them. So how much of everything else is responsible when you have control over you? And the other key is to movement is be proactive. Don't, I think it was Tara who once said, when you're moving, don't get behind a parked car, right? And I think a lot of times we could be moving in the fast lane, but we just forget, how many times you're driving and listening and you're going 40 miles an hour,
Yeah.
and you think, I'm not really paying that much attention. So
Mhm.
what I say is, if you can't do it, could we do it? If you can't do it now, can you learn how to do it for later? Because everything's a deposit in your own bank account. And it could be knowledge, it could be attitude, it could be relationship,
Yep.
but it has
Yeah.
to turn into action, because it's like, hey, you bought the ticket. Just go to the show now, enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's so much preparation and worry. I am probably the best and maybe the worst at repurposing everything I do on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
What I do takes about 12 minutes. You'll see it. Tomorrow, this show will be off and the next day's show will be on, and that'll be the post, because
Yeah.
that's today's marquee, and all people want to know is what's in it for them. And I know that, and I love that, because now
Yeah.
it gives me a clear direction to serve them and
Yeah.
really model and duplicate through them. But before we get off the show, I'm going to make a fast run for it. Kim's here. Well said. Staying goal oriented while making pivots along the way is critical to progress. Dennis, our poet laureate, agree, have a stretch brain, not a strained brain. So cool. Sheaf, leave the last, read the next chapter. Kim says, I'm trying to go for the meteor ones. Great point down. Measure your movement in business. How did you manage to stay ahead and keep moving your business forward? You know what? In business, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You're making deals. You got to pay payroll. You got rent. It isn't about you any. You got six. I had one time 72 people working under one roof with me. You know what a payroll that is? You know how many families that are dependent on your decisions, who are living paycheck to paycheck, 90% of them?
Yeah.
That's not about you anymore. You are probably in the best position to move on once you've been really successful. It's
Yep.
the people that no one will know as well as you and never get to know.
Yeah.
And that's what you have. When you make it about you, it's too shallow. Anytime you're involved with something or someone that makes you part of something bigger in yourself, makes you something better in yourself. So, I think that's so important. Renata said, wonderful point. Thank you so much. Beverly's here. Actually, Beverly, I believe, will be here tomorrow. I'll check the schedule. I'm so well said. You can always pivot and change. Natalie's here. Natalie's just been a superstar here, coming back. Been here about 3 times in 3 weeks. Sometimes actually, Natalie's here tomorrow, I believe, with Beverly. Or it'll be Friday. No, that's Kinga. So anyway, sometimes in pausing, we get a new perspective on where and how to move. Sheaf says, you got it, guys. When nothing goes right, go left. There's a saying, if plan B doesn't work, you got 24 more letters. So, it's really being, resourceful and being, sometimes you love the moment where, hey, it's you against something and you got to do it, and you're up to it.
Yeah.
That's the key. Ken's here, always with delectables. So nice to see you. Ann Bambola is so great. Our ambassador from Nigeria. She's brought so many people that she's known to the show and throughout. And, that's the other thing about moving. I'll make that point, is you can get into orbit with other people's movement. Like I say with Leslie, people are looking for more people to get on more shows, to tell their stories. If you're here commenting, reach out and say, I love your show. I'd love to be on it.
Yep.
People will find a spot. And, just in the last week, I've gotten so many referrals from people because they had them.
Yeah.
And I've been referring people because I say, I know somebody's got a great show. You should be on it. Let me introduce you. And you should be here and you should be there. And eventually everybody now becomes a personality beyond what they were doing or who they were, because now they've got a fan base. Now they've got an audience. Now they've got people saying, thank you so much for this, or you made my day. And without that, we'd be living in a vacuum. Go ahead, Gretchen.
It's one of the, I had mentioned earlier that there are gifts and opportunities inside every challenge. And when you want to tell your story, most people have it's a challenge, right? And I think it's Paul's saying, and I'm going to get it wrong, sorry, Paul, but your struggle can be somebody else's salvation story. That's one of the gifts. Whatever you've gone through that has steeled you, that you've learned from, that has helped redefine who you are and made you better as a human being, more wise, any of those things. And you tell that story, you realize you've just converted that challenge into a gift, not just for you by being able to create a platform or be on a platform to tell that story, but you've given that gift to somebody else, because the world has how many billions of people? And this is emotional. So if you see my nose get red, my eyes get red, it's because it's emotional for me. You may never, ever hear from the person that you helped. You don't have to. Just that's the gift. You tell your story, you help just the world by putting the positive aspect of, this is what happened. This is how I got through it. This is what I learned from it. And anybody who's in the thick of something right now, who doesn't see a way out, who feels like the entire world is collapsing around them and it's getting darker and darker and darker, and they hear that and they see you, you just opened a window for them. You don't have to know them. You may never hear from them, but you just opened a window for them. You let the light in. That's the whole point. That is becoming the gift and creating the opportunity for other people by sharing your experience. And I do think that there are people who are chosen for some experiences because there's somebody else who needs the benefit of how they got through it. And that doesn't land for everybody. I had that conversation with Kim on Saturday, but I think it's very important to mention that. But when I say there are gifts and opportunities in everything, and you have the opportunity to share what you've been through is a lesson for someone else, because you've been through it means it's past. You got through it. You overcame. Even if you still deal with it, you're not still in it. You got through it. Somebody else is going to get so much benefit from hearing how you did that, or just that you got through it, that there's life on the other side of it. Sometimes that's all somebody needs to keep going and take that next first step. It's very important. Yeah. And I love that you do that, Don. I love to make that available for people and open them up to the possibility to do that for themselves. I think it's a gift that you give everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a gift you give yourself when it comes back with their knowledge, with their wisdom. It's like drilling for oil. Some people are only a few feet away from one of the biggest deposits, let's say, and some people just need to be drilled down a little bit because they stuffed it down so far.
Yeah.
It's like if you dropped a ring in a sink, you'd have to undo it and stuff to get it back. And I think people just need to, what Gretchen said is, everything in life has gotten you to now and who you are. And if you love who you are, if you love where you're at, if you love what you're doing, and more importantly, if you love what you're about to be doing with people. Remember when you were young and you got a date with someone and you were so excited, and it wasn't anything to it, but at the time it was significant,
Yeah.
And the same thing is you're actually having exposures to so many people in comfortable places. This is easier than ever before. And the thing is, everybody here collectively probably has the answer or the experience to what anybody's going through, because they've gone through it. And that feel, felt, found element we talk about. I know how you feel. I felt the same way till I found this out. And it can apply to you. Yeah. And, the other thing is, I would say, no matter where you are, you can always get down to breathing, right? If that's all you need to do for that moment is just keep breathing and then eat a little and rest a lot. You've done a lot for that first day. Remember, everything is one day at a time. Do all you can when you can, and keep being your own best friend. I'll just close with a couple last comments. I mean, I walk a mile in someone else's shoes. That's way you're a mile away when they realize you haven't stolen. Yeah, Harvey's a character, and I mean, we got so many beautiful people, that you would love to spend time with, but you're never going to get to England anytime soon or anywhere else. But at a certain point in the day, where everybody's going to be. Remember when you were a kid and you couldn't wait to go to where all the kids were at the playground or something else, and you'd have your day of interaction and learning together and growing together. We can come back to that. Wonderful to join. Thank you. I'll just look for anything that has something more to it. Here we have one. Awareness is key to success as a journey. Okay, I think we covered that, but thank you, Susanna, so much for contributing. Everybody contributes. We have this ripple effect way beyond where we are today. Like Gretchen says, we'll be helping people we'll never see or know. And it's okay. I love dividends and interest. And these are the dividends and interests you get when you become as good as you can with as many good people as you can at the same time. So with that, I think we're done. It's 1:00 on the dot. Gretchen, final thoughts for this show? I know everything changes every time you come back in some way.
It does. No, I just love it. I love the audience that you have. I love all their comments. It's just such a great time. I'm always like reading the comments over here and then but no, I always enjoyed this conversation. It's always so meaningful for me, and the takeaways, I'm just really appreciative to be here. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you, because you are a primary reason this show is where it is, because of in ways, this is so therapeutic for the people on the panel. It's kind of cathartic, because it takes things that you never anticipated would come up and creates these opportunities for fast, spontaneous, responsive.
Yep.
And it shows you how you can stretch your mind. And more importantly, last thing is, words are powerful.
They are.
And they can be used in so many wonderful ways, and at the same time it's a double-edged sword. So be very thoughtful on your words, but also pay a little bit more to what everybody else is saying, and think maybe there's something creating that, or the reason for them saying it. And the last thing is, make it always about it and not you, and things will always get a lot better faster. So with that, thank you. Come back in 23 hours if you can. Tomorrow, what we have is we've got Beverly and Natalie. Wednesday, we've got Rita and Colin Lake, first newbie. Thursday, we got another lady who's just amazing. Her name's Jill, JYL, with Kelly. And then on Friday, we have Kinga. Saturday, we get Leslie Nidick and Melissa Koner coming back. And then Sunday is Leslie Flowers. So full marquee, full of wonderful stuff. Thank you enough. And with that said, be safe, have a lovely day, and thank you so much. Bye.